Deployment slots. See, one of the most important thing which every developer especially has to take care of is first develop it and test it locally on their machine. Good, it's working. And once it is developed and tested on the local machine, they'll have to move it into the production. Now, at the time of moving the site into production, it's going to take some time. Maybe it might take 5 minutes, it might take even 1 hour based on what type of website you are developing. Now, during this publishing, I don't want my website to be down. That is where actually the deployment slots come into picture. Of course, we can do little more than that in the deployment slots. But what we are going to do is for every website, which we call it as a production website, we are now going to have a deployment slot created. Now, how is the deployment slot created? Go to your website actually in the portal, and in the portal you will have here deployment slots. This is the old one, the new one they are giving. So let's directly use the new deployment slot option. And you see here there is already one slot which is the current running slot, and that's what we are calling it as a production slot. It's a fixed name, you cannot change this. You can add now a new slot to it. And you can define a name for it. Whatever name you want, you can give for it. So I am calling it as, let's say, staging. You may call it as staging 1, staging 2, staging 3. Multiple slots can be created if required. Though in my demo, I am creating only one slot at this point of time. Clone settings from. Right now, whatever settings I have in production, I'll take those settings. Settings means what? The application settings. All the application settings of the production now are going to be copied into this staging slot. So click on add. Something wrong with the portal. Let's go back to the original one. Maybe this is still not working. So here we'll do it. Staging and click on OK. That's in preview. So some bug might be there. Gradually they will rectify all that and this will go away. But more or less you will be able to do the same things in both the places. So now we have got a deployment slot created. Now what you have to note is this deployment slot which is created is having exactly same features as what a app service production slot will have. Same. All the properties are same here. Everything. My original web app is here and it has these properties, and I selected a slot for this production web app and same set of properties I am going to have here. For a slot you can have a separate custom domain if you want. For a slot you can have a separate SSL if you want. Everything can be completely independent for a given slot. You can scale up, scale down. All the details, network insight, application insight details you can capture for the slot separately. What is important is now the right procedure for upgrading the website. Especially if you are a developer, what you will do is you will probably make some change to the website. Let's say I go to index.html and here I'm doing some kind of upgrade. Let's say I just put my name and I want to publish this now. So if I decide to publish this, I'm not going to publish into the production slot directly. It is a bad practice. Now you first publish into a staging slot which we created. So I now create a new profile existing and I should select staging for my web app. For that you'll have to expand this and you'll have to select the staging. That's the name I gave, staging. You can give any name here. Click on OK, and now when it is publishing, it is actually publishing to the staging slot. On completion, you will notice that the URL of staging slot will be DSS demo app hyphen staging. Whatever name I have given, maybe I have by mistake given DSS demo DB, I think. So yeah, DSS demo DB. So it is supposed to be DSS demo app hyphen staging. Whatever is the name of your app originally, to that you should append hyphen staging, and this is the content on the staging slot. You will notice this is the original site and this is the staging. And here we have this. So now you test your staging completely. After the staging has been tested thoroughly, you now have the choice of moving the staging into production by just one click. So come to the slot and you have the option here, swap. This is a production slide, deployment slot, and says swap. And what do you want to swap? I want to swap the content from staging into production. Whatever is there in staging, I want to move that into production. And click on OK. Now this warning generally is going to display app settings which if any are going to change. Right now we do not have any copy of app settings preserved. So as it is. And you will see that as it is swapping, this site is accessible. I mean, it went very fast, but otherwise both the sites will be accessible. And what is important now? The old production now has become staging, and what was staging has now become production. And my site was not down during this period. That is the most important thing. The site was continuously running during this particular period when the swap was happening. So all that, how it is done, what is the technology used behind, we are not interested. Azure is a platform as a service is taking care of that aspect of it. So deployment slot gives you the ability to move a website first into staging and then swap from staging to production with zero downtime. That's the major benefit of deployment slot. Yes, you can do A/B testing, wherein you test what you do. For every web application, you might have multiple ways of implementing it. So what I'll do is, I will have, let's say, 2 web applications, maybe with 2 different UIs, and I will give both of them to my users internally for testing and telling me which one is a better experience for them. So is A version better or is B version better? They will report it to me. Once I know whichever is better, I'll move that into the production. I'll not move the other one into the production. So something like that is what is referred as A/B testing. So using deployment slots, we can do A/B testing, and the better of A and B can be moved into production. Warm up. Always there is a load time for an application. It's not that the application will immediately get loaded the moment you the moment you upload the files into the server. It will take time because there will be some initialization code which has to execute. So what we can do is, in staging we can do that complete load. Once we have loaded into staging, we can move it into the production, and production will not have any initial load time. The first request itself is going to be pretty fast. And of course, if there is something which goes wrong, we can move back into the original site by again swapping. Just click on swap once again, and you would have swapped the production to staging, staging to production again. So that is the real advantage what we are going to get because of slots. Something very important, The slot feature is supported only if you have got standard pricing tier. That means you have to pay extra for slot feature. If you want slots, you have to go to standard, and standard is little more in cost when compared to the basic pricing. And there are certain important things you have to keep in mind. When we are swapping, everything doesn't swap. There are few things which get swapped and there are few things which do not get swapped. General settings such as framework version 62-bit, all this will get swapped and they are expected. I might have upgraded from, let's say, .NET Framework 3.5 to 4.0. So I want the 4.0 to be swapped into the framework, into the production. So we want that. Application settings. But application settings, you have to keep in mind one thing. Application settings, right now you see here, I have the value of K1, V1, K2, V2. Here also I have the value K1, V1, K2, V2. That means they are same. But when I publish, I might want to probably have a different value, or for both we might want to have a different value. So I go here into production slot, app settings, and here I give K1, K2 under app settings. K1, this is production, V1, K2, production, V2. But one of these two I will put a check mark here. Basically I am sticking it. I am setting it as a slot setting. So K1 is a slot setting. K2 is not checked. That means it's not a slot setting. Save this. Now when I created the slot, the staging slot, K1, K2 were not there. And because K1, K2 were not there, the staging slot will not have K1, K2. You may have to explicitly add there. And I'm doing that. So I am now in staging slot. In staging application settings, I am going to add here also K1, K2. If I do not give K1, K2, no problem. The value from config file will be automatically picked up, which is happening right now. Staging, let's say V1 and K2, staging V2. Now you have to be careful. There you have put check mark. Here also you should put a check mark and save it. This is done. So now what we did, we said that K1 is a slot setting, whereas K2 is not a slot setting. Now let's go back again to slots and do a swap. This time we will swap again staging to production, and here you are going to get one message. Last time there was no message, no warning, but now we have, and that is K2. K2 old value is production V2, but the new value will change. That's what is the warning given to us. And you should be careful about it if you are saying OK. Let's say OK. And you'll notice that K1 value is sticky to that particular slot. But K2 value has changed. So go back now, refresh it. You'll see here. Both are coming as production. Wow. So that means swapping has not completed. I did click on swap. Yeah, it's still, this time it is not completed. You see, it's taking time. You should get the message swap completed. But important thing to note, the site is still running. Whenever the swap is completed, for whatever reason it's getting delayed, now it's completed. K2 value has moved, K1 is sticky. So this is very important because many times we want different values for both production and staging slots. So put a check mark there and make the settings slot specific. Same thing is applicable for connection strings in database. I might have a different database for testing product staging, and the production version might be different. So here we are supposed to add connection strings. There also you have to take care of the slot settings. Or maybe you want to swap the database also. Then don't check it. So accordingly you have to deal with it properly. That's the point to be noted here. Handler mapping, HTTP handler mapping, they will get swapped. Monitoring and diagnostic settings, they are associated with the code, they will get swapped. We don't know this topic, but there is something called as web job every application has, which runs in the background of the web application. So the web jobs also will get swapped. So you have to think little logical actually, and you will know that these contents are swapped. Now what are not swapped? Publishing endpoints, obviously the URL will not be swapped. The custom domains will not be swapped. Obviously custom domains means certificates, SSL certificates and bindings will not be swapped. Scale settings, I may always want to have different scaling for production and different scaling for the staging. Staging I may not even scale, I want probably one instance only, but production I would want to have multiple instances. So scale settings will not be swapped. Scheduling, there is web job scheduling, that also will not get swapped. So it's very important certification exam question, or you call it as interview questions. They will ask you what all of the below settings are going to be swapped from production to from staging to production, and you have to choose the right options. We have seen how to add a deployment slot, how to swap with the production, and same things whatever I have shown you through portal you can as well do using PowerShell. I'm not executing this PowerShell, but let me explain it to you. First, a resource group. My resource group name is demo.org, and my site production URL, production site name is DSS demo web app. That's the assumption. So for this I want to create a new slot. This is the PowerShell command, rm web app slot. Remember all Azure commands in resource manager template, ARM template, the deployment model ARM, you will have Azure RM. And now we are working with web apps. That's why web app. And in that we are doing slot management and slot. And we want something new. So new. So all PowerShell commands are framed like this only. You should find that consistency by looking at multiple similar commands, how they are framed. Consistency is there. You have to give resource group. Every command, most of the commands, I would not say every, but most of the PowerShell commands would require you to mention resource group name, the site name, and we are saying that we want a slot by name staging to be created. So this PowerShell command, when executed, after connecting to the site, the Azure portal, this is going to create a staging slot. Once the slot is created, set Azure RM web app slot config name. Now what is the advantage of this? Here we are able to provide the key value pairs. We are giving now app settings key 1, key 2, and likewise connection string names primary DB1, secondary DB. Primary DB, secondary DB. So these are app settings which we are actually setting here. Web app slot config names, we are configuring it. So it's not just slotting, there are additional commands also which are there, which are important for again the exam point of view. You have to remember them. And then you have these command for setting the value of those keys. Here we have only set the keys. For setting the value of those keys, we have this command, set Azure RM web app, and app settings have to be set. And app setting is a dictionary. So here at the rate, the key value pair is what we are giving it as a dictionary object with key value pairs. And then we have got same command, you see, but here it is slot. So obviously slot name has to be mentioned, and rest of it is all same. So original web app we have given key value pairs, for slot we have given key value pairs, and now we want to do a swap. Simply use switch Azure RM web app slot, and that will take care of swapping the staging to production. The staging version is swapped to production. Simple, that's it. But if you want to preview how the values are changing, like in portal you have seen there is a direct option preview, but if you want to do the same thing, this preview, if you want this, you'll have to do it little differently. In first case, get the values, print it. I'm printing the app settings. From staging, no, not from staging. Yeah, from staging slot. Get the values and print. These are the current values. Now do a switch. Same, earlier also we used switch. Now also we are using switch, but the difference is now we are giving swap with preview action. That means instant swapping will not happen. After doing this preview action, swap with preview action, we are again going to execute the same command, get Azure RM VM app slot, and get the staging side, and again print the value. So if we know we are fine with these new values, whatever are getting swapped into the production, if we are fine, in such kind of case, you can execute finally switch, but this time complete slot swap. Earlier it was apply, but now it is complete. Something like a transaction, we can say that. Remember the difference. I am repeating once again. Here we do not have swap preview action. So immediately, automatically it is going to do the swap. But in these two cases, we have, here we are only applying the slot config, but we are not swapping. The swap is going to happen only when we execute here the complete slot swap. In case we say no, this is not the actual expected value, you just say reset and it goes back to the normal state. That's it. So this is how slots is one of the most beautiful feature which app service provides, especially when you are upgrading your application, when you are making changes and redeploying the new version of it. It's really a handy thing because testing can be done as in real time because of the swap. Point to be noted, if you are going for standard, you can have maximum 5 slots. That means in standard pricing tier, you have maximum up to 5 slots, whereas in premium tier, you can have up to 20 slots. You may want to have user testing, you may want to have developer testing, user testing, then one more layer you want to have UAT testing. A lot of testing in between you would probably do, and finally when everything is okay, you keep the content into production instead of just putting staging and then into production. You might have multiple slots in between, and like the way I swapped staging to production, from one slot to another slot also you can swap in a very similar fashion. No differences. So that's all about slot deployment. Thank you.